Good morning. This one's going to be a little bit different because I'm doing VO after the fact. And that's because I'm trying to get my Sims from where they are right now to where I want them to be, which isn't really gameplay, it's contrived storytelling. So we're going to do it this way. And what we're doing here is Rosalind is investing in Mount Komorebi. She loved it while they were on vacation, and having grown up in Ondarian around nobility, right? Her mother was queen, both of her brothers are kings, her daughter is a queen, right? That's just the world that she lives in. So it's natural for her when she's interested in a space to get involved in the area, to get to know the powers that be, to like start rubbing elbows and making friends. And so the way I see it, she already had apartments. And so that was another way to get in with the community and kind of like set her intention, right? And when she was skiing, she hit it off really well with Megumi. So this is just like her intention for those powerful families in Mount Komorebi, saying, I'm here to stay. I want to build relationships. So Eleanor is one of her sisters. She has two older brothers that are twins, and then she is one of triplets, Rosalind, Eleanor, and Theodore. So she's going to have Eleanor help her out with this because her primary job is being the dynasty head. So she's going to get Eleanor to come in and check on the unit and do the maintenance and repairs and stuff. And she's brought in her husband, of course, who has maxed his handiness skill to upgrade all of the electronics and plumbing and stuff.
Bogandro?
Yibs!
So in an effort to get to know Megumi better, she's invited the ladies of Darong to come on a hike with her in Mount Komorebi. And this is going to help the rest of the dynasty start to get to know Megumi. I think at this point, Rosie's thinking she wants the families to know each other. Usually when families in the royalty and legacy pack build alliances between other noble families, it's for power. And I mean, there are some things Rosie can't help growing up the way that she grew up, but she's not really into political maneuvering, right? She's not part of the noble thing. She just didn't want any part of it. Choosing allies based on prestige isn't really her move. She doesn't need to build prestige. What she wants is to be surrounded by good people. She wants to continue to provide for her family, and sometimes that means providing options. So everyone really loved Mount Komorebi, so she's made it part of her job to start building those connections. But Rosie's always looking for ways to use her family's prestige for good. Building up the power of good people is one such way. I imagine Megumi is very touched by this. Right, this is a lot of effort for someone to just like Mount Komorebi, but Rosie is very generous. She's a very warm-hearted person. She wants everyone to feel comfortable. She wants to be on the good side of everything.
Ooh.
So because of that, Megumi invites Rosie's family to join hers for dinner. That way Rosie can also get to know Akiko better, who is head of the Ito dynasty.
Shimba. Finuza.
I also, in the middle of what's going on, I want to talk about this revelation that I had about Francesca because I keep wondering what I want to do with her, and it just feels like she has nothing to do. But later on, you see her playing the piano for her family, and I realized that she just wants to be the main character in her own life. And the reason this was a revelation is because, like, she has this pattern consistently. Okay, wait. So in this moment, this is where I imagine Megumi is offering to host dinner for Rosalind's family. And they really hit it off. And she actually has a moment where she meets Akiko, because Akiko is like right around here somewhere.
Ah, Wavine.
Ah. Kluba
Oh, Vadish.
Yishla. Renishoop. Shishtawab.
Yibs.
Yibs.
So.
Ugh, I hate when it does that.
Oh, Lemida. Oh.
Wallacane Meta. Quexi Fazunia Sarabim. Fredishay.
Oh.
To be
Grebo Fabane. Oh, Frishy. Suflo Bopis Wogra. Chilni. Fidwani Dopsu.
So now we are at Megumi's house, and she's going to have a dinner party and invite Rosalind's family over. In the meantime, I want to continue with my Francesca thing because she's invited this pattern into her life in multiple different ways of like not being the focal point of her own life, because she is in her second life, right? She was reborn, and in her first life, she was married to Zahara, who was queen. And while they were building their political careers, they lived with two other girls who were also building their careers, one from the Cap dynasty and another from the Thebe dynasty, and that was super fun. But it was consistent that Francesca and Zahara were neck and neck in their promotions. Like, Francesca was a day after Zahara consistently. And at the time, I think she knew Zahara was really good for that job. Like, she was meant to be queen, and I think she knew that. She didn't have any problems with it. But when we become imbalanced as people, we start seeing things differently. We start having different perspectives. And so, not that I think that she can remember her past life, because I don't think that's a thing. But, like, if she did, I think she would see it differently now. I think she would kind of have like a negative perspective of the whole thing, of like Zahara always had the attention. And I don't think it was that way, but it's interesting now, like looking back, you can totally bend the whole thing to be toxic, because in the middle of Francesca and Zahara's marriage, they had a lot of trouble. So they had the triplets, and that turned their whole life upside down, right? Because Zahara got demoted because she was spending all of her time with the triplets, and that sent her into a spiral. And then she started having an extramarital affair that resulted in a child. Deny, deny, deny. And instead of Francesca the First asking for a divorce or being upset or what have you, she went and had her own extramarital affair, except she one-upped Zahara because Zahara has all the attention. What could she possibly not appreciate about her life? Like, that's insane. Francesca one-upped her. She went to a couple whose names are Fair Nouvelle and Nova Curious, who only appears in scenarios, but I played the scenario and then saved her. And then when I was looking for scandal and disruption and setting fire to the beautiful thing that I had created, I brought Nova back into the universe. So she had affairs with both of those women. Now, I didn't have mods installed at the time, so it was the type of affairs that the base game allows. And because Zahara got a secret baby, Francesca was like, I'll also take one of those. Thank you.
Dag dag. Huh? Dabishi Sleka.
And Zerpa.
And Kuya.
What's interesting about this revelation is it takes into account all of the lore that I've been avoiding going into. But now I have like a perfect opportunity to talk about it because this on screen speaks for itself, right? And while that's doing that, I can catch you up. So then we fast forward to Francesca. He's reborn with Theodore and his now wife. So when Francesca was an infant, she lived in the San Sequoia house that Rosalind lives in now with Rosalind, Theodore, Franny, her mother, and Jawara, who was also a reborn infant. And the 5 of them lived together. They were like brand new young adults, right? So like early 20s. And the reason Rosalind decided to rebirth them was because she thought that it was like giving back to her dynasty, honoring her family. She really felt heart-centered in that. And she didn't have an idea of what she wanted to do before that. So once she got that idea, she got it because her grandmother died, and then like a couple weeks later, her mother died, and she was trying to rebirth her grandmother, and so she was waiting for Jawara the First, her ghost, to come back so that she could talk about the idea with her. But she wasn't showing up. She didn't show up until Rosalind went to her mother, Francesca the First's funeral, where both ghosts showed up. So she took that as kind of like a sign. So she took both ghosts back home with her, told them the plan. This is the idea that I have. What do you think of it? And the way I see that conversation having gone is Jawara loved that idea. She's like, I'm in. Let's do it. Francesca, however, had a secret baby, and she wanted to legitimize this baby by being her daughter. Now, the thing that you need to know is I found a surprising oversight in the royalty and legacy pack and exposed and abused it to the nth degree. Because that is our responsibility as simmers. I needed to see it through. So if you have a secret baby in The Sims, romance is not turned off between that baby and their technical relations because the genealogy does not recognize them actually being related. So Francesca's secret baby is Franny, who is married to Theodore James, her legitimate son. And it's disgusting and it's gross, but the game let me do that. So Francesca, being an all-knowing ghost in the ether, was like, okay, well, I need to legitimize the fact that this is my child, so I will be her baby. The 3 of them, Rosalind, Theodore, and Franny, were living in North Haven together. They were building up a small business that sold home decor. That was really fun. And in the beginning of that, Franny was dating Obi's son, Louis, but that didn't work out. And that was more legitimate because they're not technically related. And that was Gabriel Jude's idea because he knew the secret. He was like, okay, well, if you want to legitimize yourself, you just have to marry into the Darong family. You go to the side of the family that isn't related to Francesca, and you can do it that way. And so that was her plan, but they didn't really have good chemistry. So it was a good plan on paper, but in reality, it just would have taken too much effort. She didn't really want that. So she kind of just took on the role of building that business as like the primary owner. And as gross as it is, fell in love with Theodore. So that happened. But you hear random stories about that, you know, like where people don't even know that they're related. And then like years later, after they've already had kids, they like do a genealogy report and realize that they're siblings. Okay. We don't want to think about it, and we don't want to know it exists, and we don't want to, just don't think about it too much. Anyway, so Francesca rebirths into Franny's care. And so they're infants, and Theodore gets a call from a friend of his saying that he needs a place to stay for a few days. And that friend is Johnny, guy with the blue hair there at the end of the table. So Johnny stays for a few days. And what's interesting about Johnny, so I used a template that I had used before, and I didn't do a very good job. So when he dropped in to this save, he had memories and skills and milestones from the previous when I had saved him to the gallery. So the way I see it in my brain is actually he was taken from an alternate universe and plopped into this universe with all of his memories and all of his skills, and he lost everything from the previous alternate reality. Which is actually incredibly sad if you think about it, because he had a whole family. He had a wife, a son, twin girls, which was interesting because I did not think about that. He dropped into an alternate reality, asked a friend if he could stay with him. Obviously, there's time difference because he has to make friends. I imagine they met in some kind of like work situation, which doesn't make any sense. That's weird. I've always imagined they met at work, but Theodore doesn't have a job. Anyway, so he's grieving the loss of his entire life. And a lot of time passes to where he's in a emotional place where he's just trying to make this reality work for him. Obviously, he hasn't gotten very far because he still doesn't have a house, doesn't have a place to live, but he finds himself in a home where there are twin girls. And they're younger than his girls. I think his girls were children at that time. I imagine it like heals something in him to be a part of their life. And again, they're not legit twin girls, but they're the same age. They're girls, they're reborn. There's a lot about them that just kind of like is the same. So through Rosalind's eyes, what that looks like is some stranger who is really attractive and really sweet. Okay, wait, so the whole reason we're watching this is for this moment.
Wobara, Zapula Congo,
Uh-huh.
Dorfna Yab Ya!
Yibs, Badsha!
We have an alliance formed. Oh my gosh, it's so exciting. Yay! Okay, back to what I was talking about. Johnny is healing through Rosalind's children, and he's helping her around the house, helping her with these twins, helping her raise girls. And Theodore and Franny are not good parents. There's something in the air that this was Rosie's idea, and so it kind of is Rosie's thing. Not that anyone else sees it that way, but Franny, being the immature person that she is, just kind of allows that dynamic to form. Anyway, so Johnny falls in love with these girls, and he was originally just going to stay for a few days. He ends up staying for a very long time. Franny and Theodore get engaged, they get married, and they decide that they're going to move into a home of their own. And there's a few dynamics taking place here, because Johnny was supposed to be there temporarily, but he doesn't want to leave. I think he really appreciated building a friendship with Rosalind. He really likes Rosalind. He doesn't want to speed things up. He wants things to just be naturally growing at their own pace. And at that point, they're just friends. Like, they are building really deep connections, but they're not being romantic, which is just so adorable. So he's kind of like thinking, what should I be doing here? But he just kind of wants to see what she's thinking. And so at some point, it comes up, and the way that I imagine Rosie acting about it is like, well, there's an extra bed. Like, you now don't have to sleep on the couch. Like, we have the space. You're fine. Because she also likes the slow pace at which they're going, so I don't think she addresses the relationship part of it. She's just enjoying what's going on right now. She doesn't want to interfere with too much communication. She just wants to enjoy it. So that's what I imagine. She just kind of is like, yeah, you can keep doing what you're doing. Don't talk about it anymore. Oh, and now we get to do the ball. And this ball is in celebration of the new alliance. Right? Rosalind wants to bring the families together in a more formal way. So the reason that's important, the Johnny Rosalind situation, the way I see it going is Franny and Theodore's moving truck pulls away, the door closes, they take infant Francesca with them. Johnny's sitting on the couch right there, Rosalind's sitting on the couch just being very uncomfortable, not appreciating what's going on, but not being able to tell Johnny because she would never bring scandal upon her family by telling scandal information to people who do not need scandal information. But I do imagine she knows how she's related to Franny, because Gabriel, being the self-righteous person that he is, he's amazing. Gabriel's amazing. He does have a self-righteous streak, right? That's why he took Franny into his care in the first place, which is a whole nother story. He found out that Francesca had a secret child and he went and introduced himself to her mothers, which is a situation that bit him in the ass very quickly because they set a fire and died and left Franny behind. So Franny actually didn't have anybody except the stranger who had just walked into her front door. That's how Rosalind and Theodore even know Franny exists. Anyway, so the door closes. Infant Francesca II gets taken with them. And I imagine without even having communicated her emotions, he just is on the same page, Johnny. And I imagine he goes, "Don't like that." And completely, instantly, Rosalind feels seen. She's like, yeah, that doesn't feel good. So she goes and she gets Francesca. And that's how Francesca ends up living with her. And she formally adopts Francesca. As rude as it might seem, she just didn't have any confidence in Franny and Theodore being able to raise Francesca in the way that she deserved, right? Like, if you know someone is your mother from a past life, you're going to get a little bit more protective, I imagine. And hindsight being what it is, turns out Francesca came into this world with her own issues. How this actually ties into the revelation that I have about Francesca is that her mother, she actually shows up to the ball. And I ignore her because I just don't want to put any energy into her. She doesn't get invited to things because she's married to her brother. Like, people don't want to associate with those people. So when Francesca was taken to Rosalind, she was in a safer place. She was with people who were actually good parents, but her mother, her biological mother, didn't actually fight for her, right? She'd always kind of felt like Francesca was Rosalind's idea and never really took responsibility. But to Francesca, she wasn't the focal point. She wasn't a priority. She wasn't the star of the show, again, for the second time. And that also explains she had a baby and put it up for adoption. This was an insane revelation to me because I'm like, this pattern is throughout her entire existence. So what we're going to do is we're going to give her the life that she deserves. And what I've done to reflect this, she deserves to be high maintenance. She deserves to be so fully in her feminine power that she has every material thing she's ever wanted, including all eyes on her. So she's going to be a singer. She's amazing at piano. She's always been amazing at piano. She was amazing at piano in her first life. She picked it up very quickly as a very young child. In this life, Francesca II. What's interesting, though, is I thought Fran wanted to be an actress. With this revelation that I've had, she now has her own revelation of, actually, I was sniffing around something, but now I know exactly what it is. Because her heart really isn't in the acting thing. In one of the videos that I put out, you can see it's not actually giving her fun. I was like, wait, I thought this is what you liked. And she doesn't like it. So she wants to sing and she wants to play piano. She needs attention. And I think that will create balance in her life. I'm so excited to start understanding this about Francesca and give her everything that she wants. Don't get that confused though. This video is the shift into Makoa and Issy being our main characters. Nobody can make you the main character of your own life. So just because she's not our main character doesn't mean she's not the main character of her own life. It's going to be Makoa and his friends, Issy and Francesca, but I'm super into the whole love story between Makoa and Issy, so Oh my gosh, aren't they so cute? They're just dancing as friends and they have no idea that fate has intertwined their life. Okay, so this is super cute. So this is like half the people we've been talking about today. So dancing here in the front in the purple is Caius Elijah. His twin brother is right directly behind him, Gabriel Jude. And then all of the triplets are there. You have Rosalind Grace in the red looking exactly like Sahara. It's so stinking cute. And then to her left, Gabriel Jude, and then Cassandra Goth, and then her triplet brother, Theodore James. Right next to him is Janae Price, who is brothers with Rosalind's husband, Johnny, which also has like a weird story to that because Johnny had like a whole found family situation, right? Because he dropped into this universe without anybody, but then he realized he did have some family in this universe when Francesca was dating Janae's son, Sidney Price. Not incest because they're not actually related, but still a little bit weird. Next to her was Eleanor Clare. I love this family so much. When I have to get to know the lore of other people's Sims, I'm not as in love with them as the Simmer is. And I'm acutely aware of that. So that's why this video is doing so much. And I'm so thankful that you're here and interested in getting to know these Sims. I'm assuming this is a video you came back to from much later videos. So hopefully this is super helpful in connecting dots for you. That's the primary goal of this video because it's hugely pivotal in like what's on screen and what's happening, but it's very simple what's going on screen. So I'm trying to utilize the space by also connecting the dots of lore. If that is acceptable, please and thank you. And I appreciate your time here today. And to just kind of give you an idea of where I'm trying to take this, I really want to do more adventuring. I want the girls involved though. And that's why I created Makoa. I got super into his backstory and I loved that. But I'm finally getting to a place where I'm like done with that. I want his friends and the girls to kind of like merge. And we're going to take it slow because I love being inside every tiny little detail. But that's where we're going. I imagine some beautiful spot in Solani. I actually found these huts by Simple Cheeks. Super gorgeous, super adorable. I imagine the 5 of them live in these huts and they're just enjoying life and they're going on adventures and they're so cute. And we're going to have a lot of fun with that. So this is the first step into making that happen. We are bringing the families together. This is how Issy and Makoa meet. Obviously, Makoa is still attached, so we're going to go through that. I hope you had fun. There's a visual story and an audio story, and they're not the same story. So hopefully that's not too confusing. But I didn't want to do commentary for contrived story. I mean, it's part of the game, right? Like we all get sick of where we're at in the game, and so we like shift, and it takes a lot of effort to just kind of like get them where you want them, but it's very different from gameplay. So I didn't want this video to feel the same as those other videos because with this channel I specifically want to just have fun. So we won't be doing storytelling videos very often, but it is part of gameplay every now and again. A little bit of admin work, if you will. We're at the end of the party here, and Francesca didn't get to dance with anyone, so Joara's dancing with her. It ends pretty quickly, but the families now know each other, and now strings of fate are weaving the Ito and Darong families ever closer together. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Please like if you like it. Subscribe if you want more. I'm really excited to keep this going. And I hope you have a good night.